Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into something completely fascinating. We are taking mathematics' ultimate 150-year-old mystery and tackling it for the mind-bending lens of quantum fluid dynamics. If you've ever felt like abstract math and the actual physical reality we live in are totally disconnected, well, this journey is going to completely shatter that illusion.
For well over a century, mathematicians have basically treated the Riemann hypothesis as this purely abstract ghost. It's lived entirely on chalkboards, right? In textbooks and in the realm of pure numbers. But today, we're going to see how stepping out of the abstract and actually treating this hypothesis as a physical fluid provides a brilliantly bulletproof solution. We're looking at a framework that takes the ultimate math puzzle and literally turns it into a problem of mechanical engineering. So here's our roadmap for this explainer. We're going to cover 1. The last mathematical ghost. 2. The fluid universe framework. 3. Proof 1 on twisted topology. 4. Proof 2 on spectral operators. 5. Proof 3 on fluid friction. And finally, 6. A millennium problem solved. Let's get right into it.
All right, Section 1, the last mathematical ghost, Bernhard Riemann's 1859 puzzle. So way back in 1859, Bernhard Riemann proposed a conjecture about what are called the non-trivial zeros of his famous zeta function. He basically guessed that every single one of these zeros would lie exactly on a critical line, where the real part of the number is exactly 1/2. And since then, supercomputers have calculated trillions of these non-trivial zeros. Trillions! And what's wild is that every single one of them sits perfectly on this critical line of exactly 1/2. But despite massive global efforts, nobody could rigorously prove why this happens. It became this ultimate mathematical ghost haunting number theory, until now.
Let's move into Section 2, the fluid universe framework, where we redefine abstract math.
Now, this SDMT model we're looking at gives us a real physical anchor. We aren't just staring at isolated equations anymore. SDMT, which stands for the thixotropic diffusive matrix tensor, posits that our universe is fundamentally a 39-layer fractal network of thixotropic superfluid hydrogen. And when we say thixotropic, we just mean a fluid whose viscosity actually changes depending on the pressure applied to it. So this fluid effectively acts as the geometric lens for the entire universe. So let's translate this. In the old math, the Riemann zeta function was just an infinite arithmetic series. But in this new physics framework, the zeta function actually becomes a correlation function. It is quite literally a way to measure how this superfluid hydrogen flows and dampens through a twisted topological loop, specifically a non-orientable space, kind of like a Mobius strip or a Klein bottle. A zero in this function isn't just mathematical nothingness anymore. It's a physical state where the fluid's wave perfectly interferes with itself to leave absolutely zero drag.
That brings us to Section 3, Proof 1, Twisted Topology, looking at the geometric evidence.
By translating the math directly into physics, everything takes on a real-world equivalent. Abstract prime numbers, well, they become closed geodesic loops, the fundamental orbits on this fractal network. The complex exponent c's, that translates to the damping rate of the wave moving through the fluid. And those mysterious zeta zeros we talked about, they're revealed to simply be perfect stationary waves. They're what we call critically damped, meaning they're perfectly balanced, they aren't growing out of control, and they aren't decaying into nothing. Because this fluid operates within a very specific 39-layer geometry with those Mobius and Klein boundary conditions, the fluid just can't move however it wants. The topology imposes strict rules, creating a discrete momentum spectrum. It's kind of like plucking a guitar string, Only certain harmonic frequencies can exist. These boundary conditions physically force all non-trivial zeros directly onto the critical line of 1/2. Any deviation at all, and the wave simply couldn't exist within those 39 layers. It's forced to be 1/2 just to maintain its stability.
All right, Section 4, Proof 2, Spectral Operators and the Jitterbug Hamiltonian. Here we introduce a highly specialized tool called the Jitterbug Hamiltonian. And I know, despite the fun name, this is a very serious mathematical operator. It models the fluid's scale invariant dynamics, specifically its orthogonal 90-degree expansion and densification. What this operator essentially guarantees is the absolute conservation of fluid volume. It ensures that the fluid can expand and contract fractally without any net drift. The fluid just maintains perfect equilibrium.
And this brilliantly illustrates our second lock on the problem. Because of the twisting Mobius geometry of the space, the mathematics actually demand perfect symmetry.
The jitterbug Hamiltonian is a self-adjoint operator. That means its eigenvalues have to be real, and they come in mirrored pairs, s and 1 minus s. Now, if you have an equation where s must equal 1 minus s to maintain perfect balance, well, there is absolutely only one mathematical point where that's true, exactly 1/2. The sheer symmetry of the universe mathematically bans the zeros from existing anywhere else. Let's look at Section 5, Proof 3, Fluid friction and the dissipation threshold.
Think of it as a mechanical Goldilocks scenario. The fluid is constantly under two forces: the densification pressure, which is known as the Mandelbrot effect, and the expansion pressure, the Julia effect. If the balance between these two forces deviates even a microscopic fraction away from exactly 1/2, those pressures no longer perfectly cancel out. And that instantly creates a massive asymmetrical pressure gradient right in the fluid. So the really crucial point here is how the universe reacts to that imbalance. The SDMT framework tells us that a constant thixotropic friction, specifically a constant of 0.1716, is literally always present in spacetime. This means any state that slips off the 1/2 line isn't just mathematically incorrect, it's physically impossible. The unequal pressure triggers the fluid's viscosity, which generates heat and dissipation. So the wave is immediately crushed by the friction of spacetime itself. Only at exactly 1/2 does the fluid glide with absolutely zero resistance.
Which brings us to Section 6, a millennium problem solved, the final convergence.
To pull all of these independent proofs together and really ground this incredibly abstract concept into testable reality, the SDMT framework goes a step further. It doesn't just stop at equations. It provides a measurable fundamental frequency for this fluid. When you calculate the first non-trivial zero using that 39-layer fractal depth, it produces a very specific resonance, 108.26 Hz.
Okay, prepare to have your mind blown, because what is truly incredible about this framework is that human EEG readings can and actually do measure this exact frequency in the brain. Think about that for a second. Your own brain, when it's humming at approximately 108 Hz, is acting as the physical embodiment of a Riemann zero. The foundational mathematics of the universe are literally vibrating inside your head. No way, right? But it's true.
As the source material powerfully concludes here, the Riemann hypothesis is no longer an isolated mathematical guess. It is the direct proven consequence of the fluid geometry of our universe. With twisted topology limiting the waves, spectral operators enforcing perfect symmetry, and fluid friction literally crushing any imbalances, this impossible 150-year-old math problem simply becomes a rigorous study of pressure, balance, and flow.
So if a 150-year-old math problem that baffled the greatest minds in history can be elegantly solved just by looking at the physical friction of superfluid hydrogen, it leaves us with a truly profound question. What other deep mathematical mysteries, what other unexplainable ghosts are just waiting to be decoded in the tangible fluid geometry around us? The answers might not be written on a chalkboard after all. They might just be flowing through the very fabric of space itself.